My name is Omar Shabazz. This will be a film about an artist named Tom Lloyd. In these photographs taken in the late 1960s, I'm shown here working with him in the construction of one of his several works of art. Many know him for his art. I know him for both his art and his righteous militancy.
This is a film about one man's effort to be free from the mental shackles placed on him by a society that tried to erase his memory. A film about a man who refused to be a domesticated thinker. It's a film about a man who was his own man. A man who was born free and died free. A man who did it his way and not by someone else's agenda. It's a film about a man who stepped forward to build a much-needed cultural center in an attempt to restore a sense of pride to a downtrodden people who were never given an instruction book, a owner's manual, a operator's manual.
New this noon, a stunning new home for the Studio Museum in Harlem.
Yeah, after nearly 8 years without a permanent home, it is finally reopening its doors. Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore in Harlem with more on the museum's long-awaited return. Crystal.
Good afternoon. Well, the Studio Museum opened in 1968 with the Tom Lloyd exhibit. He was a black activist and artist who used technology in a lot of his works, and so you're looking at some of his original pieces on the wall here that have been restored. So to have the Studio Museum reopen with a new Tom Lloyd exhibit after years of pandemic delays and construction challenges, it's a full circle moment. Leaders saying the Studio Museum in Harlem is bigger and bolder than ever. Now, just a short while ago, the curator of the museum plus state and city leaders held a ribbon cutting to celebrate the museum's triumphant return. It's located on the iconic 125th Street here in Harlem, and the Studio Museum closed in 2018 with the hopes of constructing a space to fit the needs of expanding programming. Now, museum leaders chose to stay in the same location it's been in for years, where it became a symbol of black art. Now, a group of artists founded the museum in 1968 to promote the work of artists of African descent. The director of the museum, Thelma Golden, led a campaign that actually raised $307 million for the new building and created a $52 million endowment. Leaders say this new building opens so many new opportunities.
The Studio Museum has a long history of experimentation, of being a laboratory for artists, thinkers. I think we say yes to things even when we shouldn't have. There are stories about, in the previous building, sort of curators cutting through the ceiling to accommodate large artworks. Now we don't have to make those kinds of changes to our architecture. In our galleries, our ceilings range from 16 to almost 30 feet, so we can really incorporate the scale of some of the works in our collection. We can show heavy things, we can show enormous new commissions, we can really experiment with artists and say yes to their ideas.
And the museum reopens to the public tomorrow with a free community celebration. Live in Harlem, Crystal Cranmore, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
With these light pieces, the work itself took on many shapes, including the shapes that behind me, and various other forms. This work, electronic refractions, led me into the new work that I'm working on now. At least it began, the concept for my new work began at least about 10 years ago. And the new work is work that has been developed in concept particularly, and with mock-ups in actuality. black artists during the 60s, their work evolved around the community, their interests revolved around the community and what was happening in the community, because it was happening to them, it was happening on their turf. So somehow they found a way to involve themselves. During the civil rights movement, I remember my activity was directed against the art world and the art world system that existed then. We realized that the civil rights struggle was also related to the art world. The injustices that people of color were facing during those days, those injustices included what was happening in the art world, the museums, the galleries, the means of support that one could get from fellowships and grants was not available to the black artist. So therefore, my way of expressing myself relative to that situation was through a kind of activism that was direct, a kind of activism that was perhaps different from the activism expressed all around me at the time. I remember the Black Panthers being in my community and having areas and stores within the community that they participated in, that the community participated in. And many friends of mine would say, "Hey Tom, why don't you join the Black Panthers?" And as a way of expressing yourself. But for me, I realized the legitimacy of that expression that they felt as far as changing things. But that wasn't the way that I envisioned the kind of change that I wanted to take place. Not only regarding the art world, but regarding the community. So I saw the two as a whole, the art world and the community, and changing both. And that's when I began to, and I think it began to happen all over the country, that community cultural centers were established, and community cultural centers were the way to go to improve the community and to become involved in the arts.
This Our Conjure Woman from 1972 in our collection, an early work that came into our collection as a result, a gift of the artist, Romare Bearden, as he was one of the founders of the museum. And Romare Bearden's voice and his vision are critical to who we are. He, along with Norman Lewis and so many other artists, had this idea for a fine arts museum. And they used that terminology at the time because they were adamant about the institution upholding an idea and an ideal that would serve not just their work, but the work of artists from the past, but also they were thinking about that for the future. So this Conjure Woman is a real icon of our collections, representing not just Bearden's work in all of its symbolism, but his commitment and his early faith in the institution. In thinking about it at its founding, the museum really imagined itself as creating space that wasn't there before. It was an incredibly ambitious ideal, and one that, looking back now, seems completely and totally predestined, but I never want to forget and never fail to mention that it happened with an incredible amount of intellectual and physical energy by many people to create belief around the idea of what an art museum could be in Harlem. This is the New York Times article announcing our founding, and a photograph of some of our founders in front of our first building. Very modest space on the second floor, above a liquor store at the time. So people say to me, they say, yeah, I used to go to the old Studio Museum above the liquor store. So we proudly own that, but that modest circumstance was by no means what was in the hearts and the minds of our founders. These are images from the opening night, the actual opening night party. The Studio Museum opened with an exhibition of the work of Tom Lloyd. And the work of Tom Lloyd's Narrowcan that is in this exhibition was one of the works that was in this opening night exhibition. Now again, because of the scholarly and pioneering work of so many people that have put Lloyd's work into context and even this period in terms of its dynamism, I just want to pause and say how radical it was to imagine and think about the fact that in 1968, this incredibly visionary group of people opened a museum in Harlem on Fifth Avenue, just north of 125th Street, with the work of a kinetic light sculptor who was African American. That's our DNA. That's exactly what fuels and has made it, for me, such a privilege to lead this institution that is so deeply invested in the broadest definitions of what Black art and what Black artists make and can do. This is an image of Tom Lloyd himself making these incredibly very prescient works. I mean, this, he was dealing with both digital technology, light sculpture, very early in its life and birth. And this, of course, Narrowcan from 1965, here on view now.
I come before you humble, thankful for this museum.
A vision born in 1968. Power and possibility returns to 125th Street. Where Black artistic expression is championed. Programs nurture, exhibitions reframe, and the spirit of Harlem is in every detail. A space to connect, create, and exchange. Where Black art reflects, represents, belongs. Welcome back to the Studio Museum in Harlem, where Black art lives.
Should artists have a role in the liberation of their people? I'm speaking about musicians, actors, painters, dancers, rappers, etc. What can they do?
Yes, they should have a great role. I think that they should unify. I could never figure out how come the rappers made everything East Coast, West Coast. Disunity. As long as there's disunity, as long as someone has their hand out to be able to put a bridge or a wall between this side and that side, the east, the west, the north, the south, the uptown, the downtown, the in-town, the round-town, as long as there's someone that has the ability to put that hand between anyone that's doing the same thing, they have the power to control how much money is being made. Those people that are making money, the rappers, the actors, the movie stars, the dancers, the basketball players, the football players, all those folks that are making money are just making pennies on the dollar to the dollars that the people that are in control that are making. Sam Cooke had a great idea. Barry Gordy had a great idea. James Brown had a good idea. Otis Redding had a good idea. But they would never let all the organizations or all the groups come together and organize as one to make black music or black entertainers a powerhouse. We have Natural Advancement Television and Radio Association, which is a black organization. But we have never done anything other than had a few concerts, had a few dinners, and a few awards was given and a few handshakes, but we never actually worked as one. They did something years ago, and I need to say this about Michael Jackson. The white people that had control over Michael Jackson determined that at a certain time in America, that Michael Jackson's video was going to come on and nothing else. On every music channel, radio, TV, MTV, and whatever they had back then. And they pulled off a move, and they could not figure out how that happened. And it was because of control. You know, every artist that is living, and they're trying to do in Smokey Robinson now, every artist that is living is worth more dead than alive.
I think you touched on this question about the money. These performing artists may argue at you that this is not where the money is. What do you say to that?
I would agree with it. That's where the money is not, because they're getting pennies on the dollar. They're not even getting a dime out of every dollar that's being made. So I agree with them. But the fact that the money that they garnish or the money that they make is still enough to put back into the community. They let President Jimmy Carter get involved with the Humane for Habitat, and he built houses all across the United States of America. And he wasn't lip service, he was doing a service. So people live in houses with Humane from Habitat that have been possible because of hammer and nails of Jimmy Carter. So where's our Jimmy Carter? You know, where's our person? Where's Denzel that has dollars? Where's Samuel Jackson that has dollars? Where is these people that have dollars that can say, hey, look, I'm going to build a housing complex for this group. I'm going to build a housing complex for that group. You know, where are our stores? Where are our businesses? You know, what are they actually doing with their money? You can only spend so much in a lifetime, and you can't take nothing with you.
George X. Luckett worked with performing artist Bobby Fulton, who was the founder of Soulsville Records. George Luckett was a student of Mr. Fulton. Fulton's soulful voice on many of his songs ranged from R&B, soul, and gospel.
He's the gospel connection. Every major connection today. Come on. I see you moving way down the line. Oh, it's good to be lonely sometimes. Sometimes loneliness keeps us in line.
And Mr. Bobby Fulton knew and understood his obligation to sing protest music that addressed the exploitation of his people. Bobby Fulton did not close his eyes to what was going on. There's no contradiction between Bob Fulton and Tom Lloyd. The two men would welcome each other in the fight for human rights.
Yeah. Should artists have a role in the liberation of their people? And I'm speaking about musicians, actors, painters, dancers, rappers, etc. What can they do? And I just think about, because my generation, we have Tupac, who people like to look at as like kind of on the same like lineage as like a Malcolm X kind of. Do you think we need more of the artists like that to influence the younger generation?
Yes, we need more artists. I'm not saying Tupac is the epitome of it. I certainly recognize his revolutionary aspects of his rap. I'm not a rap expert, but I read and saw his internal contradictions on wanting to speak truth to power, wanting to speak about certain things, and we also see the other thing on how to get paid. So an artist's job should be to speak truth to power, free to illuminate and explain things that we may not see. But like somebody said, the purpose of an artist or philosophy is not to accept the world, but to change it. And the artist can be a tool to open our eyes, something that we can't see. But speak to it. And somebody may be 20 years down the road. But should all of our artists, should all of our leaders come through the realm of entertainment? In other words, just because you got good rap artists out there and good people and LeBron James, good people doing good things in the entertainment industry, we do need serious people on our serious questions. So that the model may not be Tupac, but the model might be another young brother, young, charismatic, sincere, who is thinking and examining our reality and projecting our future. That we may need. And for young folks to tap into that person, rather you will have to be on a song, on a CD, in order to get their attention. Maybe we expand that thing that they can focus on something beyond that scope. But that's the only scope. Then whatever tools we have to help them navigate to see something more, then the artist has that role, and we have the right and responsibility to honor that artist, like a Paul Robeson.
Cultural restoration was the key to survival for black folks. It was time to build a hospital to get us back in our right minds again. Tom had found the perfect location for his museum, an abandoned Goodyear tire store located in a poverty area of the first magnitude, encircled by substandard housing, high crime, decay, and marked by an unemployment rate that was the highest in greater New York. The effects of poverty wasn't abolished, but a sense of promise and rejuvenation permeated spiritual consciousness. There was a new vitality challenging neglect and indifference, leading to renewal and social change.
prestazione dell'intervista che ha fatto lui, se mi chiamano arte, c'è il
Sembra che più coraggio hanno di presentare delle cose così, non può nemmeno dire lavori più così coraggio
He doesn't have to have pictures. Can you say that he's still tentative and exploring?
Essentially, I think it was just to sort of bridge the gap between blacks and whites and make whites aware that, you know, the black man did play an important part in settling on Long Island, and also to make the blacks feel a little proud that the whites are aware of their accomplishments. As far as the programs that we give, we really don't concentrate in any specific area. We sort of use a shotgun approach. Anything that we feel that would interest black people or make, say, the public aware of, you know, what black people can do, we give. For example, we give fashion shows. We have guest lectures. Like today, we're having an artist reception. We have dance groups to come in. We have history lessons. So we just about go into any area, say, to pull in the public. The museum opened in the fall or September 1970. And since then, we have had approximately, I'd say, 50,000 visitors. So this September will be 4 years.
We are speaking to Miss Jerry Wooten, Director of the Springfield Garden Senior Citizen Center. Miss Wooten, can you tell us about the center and this program?
The center is a multi-service center. We do everything from soup to nuts here. We have a free meal program. We have arts and crafts. We have musical direction, dance, some gymnastics. We're involved now. Today you've come in on our Bazaar Day, and what we're trying to do is show you some of the handicrafts that they've been working on for the last 2 months, some beadwork, We have a young man from the Metropolitan Museum of Art who is going to be showing you what they're doing with copper craft. I think that you can say that we keep our senior citizens busy from 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock doing just about everything. We even have a little Bikini club, and we have a men's corner. They play cards, they play checkers, they read books. We have some romances going on. I would say that this is a swinging senior citizen center.
Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up and sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. You know, sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, oh, yes, Lord. Still, nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. You get there before I do. Oh yes, Lord. Don't forget to tell all my friends I'm coming to. Oh, no, yes, Lord. Still, nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah.
Simply put, a cultural center is an attempt at repairing the damage placed on a uprooted people violently torn from their original way of life. Tom Lloyd was well aware of the international Western power structure and how it destroyed black people, and through his art and activism, he was going to shout about it loud and clear. In his mind, he knew it was outrageous, to say the least, how African people could be dragged into another country for centuries and have their knowledge of themselves completely wiped out. Not on Tom's watch. Yes, we were owed something. A hero to Tom Lloyd was the fearless and outspoken singer and actor, Paul Robeson. Robeson was deeply against all forms of social injustice. Robeson's criticism of the United States government would put him on the blacklist during the McCarthy era, and he would be the target of the notorious racist J. Edgar Hoover, director of the FBI. In the warped and twisted mind of J. Edgar Hoover, Robeson was deemed the enemy of white America simply because he spoke out against injustice being done not only to black people, but people of other ethnicities. Now Hoover would effectively destroy the aspirations of freedom being sought by Robeson. Tom Lloyd admired Paul Robeson so much, he would name the museum's theater after him.
How is it that the American Negro, who for so long has been a second-class citizen in the United States...
Still is, I'm sorry.
Well, how is it that he's contributed so much to American culture?
Well...
Music, dance, everything you can think of.
Well, I have to be very modest about that. I would say certainly as we look at the African peoples in Nigeria, for example, I just got a wonderful invitation to go to Nigeria to be present at the installation at the Governor General Ezekwe, an old friend, who will now, and I had to cable him. I'm in Australia. I certainly would like to be with you, but I'm out here with some good folks. But I'll get to Nigeria later.
Mr. Robeson, do you feel that Africa is to some extent an affinity for it, a home, or do you still feel America is essentially your home? How do you feel?
Well, let me come here. I'll come to that in just a second. But to come back to it, so I would say the Africans and the American Negroes have turned out to be an extraordinarily gifted people. The great tragedy is that by not making us full-class citizens as yet in America, they may be losing, I don't know how much yet. And to come back, I would say that unquestionably, I am an American, born there. My father slaved there. Upon the backs of my people was developed the primary wealth of America, the primary wealth. You have to have accumulated wealth to start, to build. You did it another way here in Australia. You had to build your accumulated wealth too. You just came and took it, you know what I mean? And that's what they did in most of the countries. That's what you Europeans did. You just took it. We got to catch up with you a little bit. And so in America. So there's a lot of America that belongs to me yet, you understand? But just like a Scottish American is proud of being from Scotland, I'm proud for being African. Now in our school books, they tried to tell me that all Africans were savages, till I got to London and found most of the Africans I knew were going to Oxford and Cambridge and doing very well, and learned their culture. And even once somebody had the temerity, after one had conquered the Chinese people and imposed upon them the opium trade and everything else, to suggest that they were a backward people, just the people who had been civilized so long over the rest of you folks didn't make any sense at all. So somewhere it was wonderful to find about the colored peoples of the world that they were very advanced. So I would say today that I'm an American who is infinitely prouder to be of African descent, no question about it. No question about it. I'm an Afro-American, and I don't use the word American ever loosely again.
Now, this was the feeling. This was the feeling.
That's right.
That when you were in London about 1937, 38, you really had the world at your feet. Then, I mean, you're a tremendous success. You were recognised over the world, and yet you went back to America. This was the feeling that took you back?
I felt I had to go back to my people. That's right. The going was tough, and today I can go back. I just had my passport renewed. I could go back to pretty tough times now. But any time I could get a telegram next week that the Negro people had gathered somewhere in one of their conferences, as they could, and say, Paul, in the difficulties that are going on in America, would you come back and help us? I would take the plane as soon as I finished my engagements.
So, the artist being involved in the community and the artist using his talents for the community was an ideal way for the artist to express himself during that period. And one of the things that I was involved in was getting the powers that be, the art world, to recognize that there was a need in the communities for artistic expression, the free artistic expression. And so many things happened at that period that made that idea seem important. I remember very clearly one day in our community, kind of a busmobile rode by and it stopped right in the projects where I lived. And it was sort of an automobile bus situation. And everybody was excited and ran out, and and went into this bus. And I, of course, was one of the people who ran into the bus. And we looked inside, and what did we see? We saw exhibits of Greek art and Roman art and French art and basically European art. And to most people, they were dumbfounded because they hadn't been exposed to this kind of art. But it was a mistake it was clear to the framers, the people who had this idea of bringing art into the community and this idea sprung from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and since black people didn't go up there in great numbers, they figured they'd come down to the black communities in greater New York and expose people to this very high art. And it didn't work out. It certainly didn't work out in our community in South Jamaica, in the projects where I lived, and that sort of sprung people to action, more or less, what people were saying. Well, where's African art? Where is art created by people that look like us? So that began the activism with some sort of force, you might say. Letters followed shortly to the Museum of Modern Art, and I organized some artists, local artists in the community, and we demonstrated at the Museum of Modern Art, and we felt that if the Metropolitan Museum of Art was going to express themselves in this manner, that it wasn't going to benefit us. And then people were saying, well, if you have anything, you should have African art and these buses and things like that. And then there were others who were saying, now wait a minute, that might let them off the hook, because that's not solving our long-term problem of having art within our communities for people to participate in and to go to on a daily basis if need be, rather than some bus mobile that stops by maybe twice a year or something like that. And it was our understanding that this bus mobile from the Metropolitan Museum of Art was the concept of some wealthy person on the board of directors, board of trustees at the Metropolitan, and this person put up a great deal of money to realize this project. So I think it was something like 500,000 or something like that. So we're saying that rather than that kind of money go to a piecemeal project that's not going to benefit us, why not contribute to an idea or a concept or a program that's going to benefit the community people in the long run. So from there we developed this idea of community cultural centers in each of the 4 boroughs, the areas in the Bronx, Harlem, Bed-Stuy, and so forth. And we came up with this program. We asked that a community survey be done in each of the communities, and that they hire artists to do these surveys, and that the artists themselves develop the concept based on the information from the surveys that the people in the community stated regarding what they would like to see as far as the community cultural center was concerned, and what kind of programs. And that was the beginning of the activism on my part that I felt that would have a positive beginning. struggle against the established institutions in New York, particularly in South Jamaica, was the establishment of a community-based museum called the Storefront Museum, which I was instrumental in establishing and becoming its head. The museum was accepted by the community. The museum contributed new ideas that related to the community with programs that the community readily accepted. And the Storefront Museum, Paul Robeson Theater, was a program that lasted for 15 years. And would have gone on longer than that had we not been located at a site in Jamaica that eventually became York College. We were on the York College site. But its run was glorious, magnificent, and the community welcomed it with open arms. In case you're wondering, this photograph behind me represents my entrance at some point in my career. I think it was probably around 1982 into photography. And here again, it encompasses my ideas of new ideas as it relates to photography. The work behind me is work, my original work entitled Electronic Refractions. They involve technology and art, something that I became interested in after my original forays into traditional sculpture and metal work and found object work. And I ended up with this idea about art and technology, and I began to associate with artists involved in art and technology, and electronic refractions was a result of the work that I achieved some recognition from in the art world. The idea and the concept of the work sprung from my observance of the world around me, the community I lived in New York, metropolitan areas, the fact that we communicate by light had a lot to do with my beginnings in this work. It gradually grew in a manner that I would do these found object parts with metal and wood, and then I would incorporate lights within them. And then as I progressed, I dropped the metal parts and began to work with light only, totally involved in light. And then I found a way of, with help of scientists and engineers, a way of controlling light, programming light to suit my needs. And one individually in particular that I met was Dr. Al Sussman, an engineer who worked with me for probably over around 30 years in developing this expression, this expression in light that I had. The electronic refractions were developed between, the concept and the work was developed between 1964 and 1968. During that time I was in many shows locally and internationally.
Though Tom Lloyd was a pioneer and innovator in the art world, his true pride and joy was his storefront museum that ran for 16 years. And now the establishment was going to make a move to try to take some of his pride away. The storefront museum was just a hop, skip, and jump from one of the most toughest housing projects in the city of New York, the South Jamaica Houses, also known as the 40 Projects, and the surrounding areas were just as tough. Areas typical of where black folks knew very little about themselves and how they responded to one another. Mistrust, suspicion, self-hate of their physical features, and the resulting side effects that came with that baggage: high crime, cocaine and heroin use, alcohol abuse, and all sorts of mayhem and madness, including murder. And the corresponding remedy? White police officers administering wanton brutality. To Tom Lloyd, what it all boiled down to was what was more important: blacks needing physical exercise or blacks needing mental exercise. To Mr. Lloyd, knocking down a much-needed black museum for an all-inclusive gymnasium was the ultimate insult. Tom Lloyd knew that historically, white folks uprooted black folks from their African homeland and placed them in a strange land and wiped out their memory. Those were the hardcore facts. Lloyd felt that it was his duty and obligation to restore black people's true identity. Who wouldn't want that? But another kind of people whose collective mindset felt that cultural restoration to a lost people would be a disadvantage to their continuing rule over their captives. Whites in power felt that their society would be much better if blacks remained deaf, dumb, and blind. Enter New York City Mayor Ed Koch, his administration, and associates. There was Bridget Brennan, spokeswoman for District Attorney Robert M. Morgenthau. Kate Levin, assistant to Diane M. Coffey, Mayor Koch's chief of staff and the city's acting cultural affairs commissioner. Robert M. Morgenthau, district attorney for New York County, the borough of Manhattan. These individuals, along with several others, made the momentous decision that Tom Lloyd's 16-year reign of administering black pride experimentation was over. In Lloyd's corner was a no-nonsense proud black assemblywoman named Cynthia Jenkins, who knew the value and extreme importance of Lloyd's storefront museum. The Koch administration was well aware of Lloyd's fearlessness. So to discredit him, a story was fabricated to smear Lloyd's name. In their eyes, Tom Lloyd was a old troublemaking nigger and repeat offender. The storefront museum would now be the target of an inquiry. I remember one morning I was in his office talking to him about, how they were going to take the museum. And I remember him telling me he wasn't going to give it up, because he felt it was his. He built it from the ground up. And I brought to his attention how desperate they could get. I didn't really bring it to his attention. He knew about the power structure. He knew how evil they could get. But I told him that, one day, while he's opening up the studio, they'll just get some crackhead to come and, take care of him one morning. And I remember he looked afar. He looked out the window. He looked afar. and, gave some contemplation to what I had just said to him. The New York Times, Sunday, September 13, 1987. Storefront Museum of Queens is target of inquiry. By Joseph P. Freed. For 16 years, the Storefront Museum was a center for black art and culture in Jamaica, Queens. Its offerings range from paintings to black history programs, from a 30-foot-long African canoe to a photographic exhibition on blacks in Queens. Today, the museum is homeless, its collection scattered and its future uncertain. It also faces an investigation by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office after questions were raised about use of some of the funds the museum received from the city's Cultural Affairs Department, officials familiar with the inquiry say. The officials declined to be more specific, but said nobody in the Cultural Affairs Agency, which has been a key source of the small museum's financing, is a target of the investigation. Bridget Brennan, a spokeswoman for the District Attorney Robert M. Morgenthau, would confirm only that an investigation regarding the Storefront Museum has been referred to our office, which has jurisdiction because of the Office of the Cultural Affairs Department are in Manhattan. A lack of concern. The museum's founder and director, Tom Lloyd, said that there had been nothing improper done at the museum. It was evicted from its city-owned building last April because the site at 162-02 Liberty Avenue is soon to be used for the construction of a gym for York College. The investigation aside, Mr. Lloyd contended that the museum's plight in being without a home and its uncertain prospects stemmed from a lack of concern for the museum by the establishment in Jamaica, a predominantly black area. He and one of his supporters, Assemblywoman Cynthia Jenkins, a Queens Democrat, also charged in interviews that another reason for the problems was that Mr. Lloyd, a 58-year-old black sculptor and longtime supporter of black art and culture, has offended people in power with his outspoken views and his advocacy of greater opportunities for black artists. Quote, "He's a very outspoken person and intelligent and takes community positions in certain situations," unquote, Mrs. Jenkins said. City officials, she insisted, could have done more to relocate the museum. Officials offer different views. But these officials and some people active in Southern Queens affairs offered sharply different views. They say they supported the public financing that enabled the museum to function over the years. They said their attempts to help the museum find a new home had been slowed because Mr. Lloyd had been too demanding. Quote, "We gave them referrals, but they did not want them," unquote, Robert Moncrief, a deputy commissioner in the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, said. Quote, "We done a lot of work trying to suggest what we thought were feasible alternatives for his considerations," unquote, said Carlise Towery, executive director of the Greater Jamaican Development Corporation. Quote, "They're a worthwhile institution, and we would like to see them continue," unquote, said Kate Levin, executive assistant to Diane M. Coffey, Mayor Koch's chief of staff, and the city's acting cultural affairs commissioner. But until, quote, "certain issues," unquote, "are clarified," she said, referring to the investigation, the Cultural Affairs Department cannot continue assisting the museum. It was always a struggle. Before the agency suspended its funding last November, it provided the museum with an average of $30,000 a year over the last decade. However, it could not be determined how much of the money the museum has received from the city is the focus of the district attorney's investigation. The museum also received grants from the New York State Council on the Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts, permitting it to have a budget of about $90,000 a year in some years, Mr. Lloyd said. But such amounts were not enough, he said. Quote, "It was always a struggle, and it will be a struggle again," unquote. He added, even if the museum finds a new building. Quote, "Our collection is small, But our museum was never the collection, unquote, he said. Quote, it was the people, the exhibitions and the programs. We had art training programs, performance programs, an annual African festival, lectures on African history and culture, unquote. Before starting the museum in 1971, Mr. Lloyd was an organizer of groups that demanded such things as a wing for the exhibition of works by Black and Puerto Rican artists at the Museum of Modern Art. More recently, he said, he has complained about such matters as minority artists getting too few commissions to produce works for new publicly financed buildings. Murmurs and whispers filtering through the grapevine about that York College delivering a knockout blow to the storefront museum were getting louder. Middle-class blacks who never set foot in the museum welcomed the college, but the grassroots people in the hood sensed total displacement. Queens Close-Up, Newsday, Friday, May 9, 1986. Black History Museum, due to become homeless. By Jeff Benko. On a wall of the Storefront Museum in Jamaica is a 4x5'6" enlargement of a document from 1853, signed by 23 black men. In the petition, the men appealed to the village of Jamaica for protection from beatings from white toughs. The petitioners wrote, "If you do not protect us, we must protect ourselves." These days, Museum Executive Director Tom Lloyd can relate to their desperation. The museum, a Queens showcase for Afro-American history and art since 1971, is about to lose its home at 162-02 Liberty Avenue. The City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, which owns the building, used a provision of its lease to ask the museum to vacate the property within 30 days. It obtained an order to vacate from State Supreme Court Justice Edwin Kassoff on April 4. The city wants to raise the building so York College can build a gym and health sciences building there. Lloyd expects the order to be served shortly. Last week, the museum's lawyer, Gerald Wiltzer, filed a notice of appeal, and Lloyd is looking for other quarters. In the meantime, he fears the city will try to toss the collection of 50 photographs and 60 documents, Queens Black history, into the street. And he's ready to do what those 23 black men did in 1853. He has vowed to block the museum's door. Quote, "If you think culture is worth fighting for, it behooves you to stand up for what you believe in," unquote, he said. The museum has survived for 15 years, partly because of the low rent it pays, currently $150 per month. Its annual budget is a modest $100,000, of which $39,582 is provided by the City Cultural Affairs Department. The rest comes from the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts, the Natural Heritage Trust, and local businesses. Lloyd has criticized city agencies for failing to help find a similar rental arrangement. HPT has referred him to commercial spaces where the rents are in the $2,000 to $3,000 per month range. "There's no way the museum can pay such high rents," Lloyd said. Nobody seems to care. What you're seeing is an example of the city and borough hall trying to gentrify the borough and not caring about cultural institutions for the black community. HPD spokesman Charles Perkins said that Lloyd has known since signing the lease in 1978 that the city intended to tear down the building and that he has no right to complain. Queens Borough President Claire Schulman disputed Lloyd's claims, saying she has consistently been responsive to all elements of the community. Her office has given Lloyd a computer list of city-owned properties. With the help of the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, Lloyd is studying 2 sites, one on Hillside Avenue, the other near the museum on Liberty Avenue. Struggling to find another home has left Lloyd angry. "It's like they're taking a part of my life and trampling on it," said Lloyd, who left a teaching career at Sarah Lawrence College and Cooper Union to open the museum. That's difficult to live with. The demolition of the building is planned for this summer, with construction to be completed by September 1988, said York College official Ray Pavia. Mama didn't raise no fool. Tom knew that even if he found another location, if the city one day decided to put up a shopping mall and he was in their way once again, they could go into their eminent domain shopping bag. The plans for York College would be an academic building which would house classrooms, lecture halls, laboratories, art studios, a library, computer facilities, academic and administrative offices, dining facilities, and a bookstore. Other buildings will contain a 1,500-seat performing arts center, a health and physical education facility, which includes a gymnasium and swimming pool, classroom and science buildings, athletic fields, and parking facilities. Sure, the facilities at the 50-acre York College site will make Tom Lloyd's storefront museum look like a dwarf in comparison. But in some neighborhoods, change enough always progress when you're poor.
Don't give me integration, give me true communication. Don't give me sorrow. I want equal opportunity to live tomorrow. Give me schools and give me better books so I can read about myself and gain my true love. nobody give me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself.
Do you feel that when you raised your sons and how your grandchildren are being raised now in the same community, do you feel like it's been better off, and like do you feel secure and happy that they're still being raised in the same area where you were raised?
I don't think it'll be better off because the same condition exists. There's more distractions today than there were when I was coming. So they up against a lot more than we were coming up. And when Malcolm's generation, that generation coming out of World War II, they had less distractions. Coming up in the 50s and 60s, we had some distractions. The kids today got more distractions. They don't play outside. They don't have they got the games. They ain't playing Regalibio. They're not playing stickball. They're not even playing sports. Some of them still playing. So there's more distractions for young people today. And lack of leadership now, or anybody perpetuating some kind of community understanding. The heroes and sheroes are basketball players, and the women's basketball league, the male basketball league. And I was at a game, and they got 2,000 kids playing basketball in one little town. Everybody trying to be a Michael Jordan. What about being a brother Malcolm or being somebody else? Or just being an ordinary brother and trying to take care of the family. We are fascinated. They have created in us this fascination with movie stars, ball players, and everything. And there's a fascination. In the 50s, you could see Will Chamberlain walk down the street. Nancy Hughes walking in Harlem. Now today, they become a superstar, whatever. They in Jersey in the gated community. So you can't even see these heroes and heroes no more. But in Harlem in the 20s and 30s, people walk down the street. So they are under a lot more pressure today, unfortunately.
Are we at where we are supposed to be as a people? Please explain.
Are we at where we supposed to be as a people? We are where we at. Okay? I don't think we're supposed to be here, but we're here. And with all that entails of our responsibility to fight in our context. So I think Frank Fanon says every generation has to find its purpose, fulfill it or betray it. We have to find our purpose. What is going on today that we need to move our people forward? But this is where we at. When we all want to be someplace different, yes. But this is where we at, and we have to find ourselves a way out of this mess. And there are people out there who are doing that kind of work. It's just not being publicized.
Are there any steps that you feel we need to take to get where we need to be?
There's probably 1,000 steps. I'm in the mindset of raising the consciousness of our people. Our responsibility to each other, our responsibility to learn about who we are, our responsibility to learn the kind of society we live in. They examine all things in life that impact our development or lack of development and find ways creatively to overcome these things. We don't have to talk about everything that we do publicly, but we must do it. And there's so much that people have to kind of make a living. So they're caught with that dilemma. How do you make a living and navigate things? And the ones who are strong and militant and clear, uncompromising, we see those young kids, and even in early school, grade school, that kid got spirit is different. That kid is penalized. They find a way to punish, to kill that spirit of resistance. And so what you're left with people who are consciously and unconsciously accommodating, whether there's a willingness or not, we acquiesce. But we're not going to acquiesce all the time. You can fool the people some of the time, but you can't fool them all the time. There's going to come a point, critical point, where we have no other choice but to go forward. There's a poem by Claude McKay, If We Must Die. I don't even hear that no more. We should hear that poem read. If I must die, how am I going to die? we have to bring those stories back. But raising the consciousness in a way that I think is one of the ways that we can do that.
Can you name any everyday products that comes from Africa? We walk into the stores and businesses, but I can't even remember seeing a product that comes from Africa. Africa is said to be a very rich continent. Where are the products that people need on a daily basis? Eating utensils, television sets, toilet paper, cell phones, toothpicks, clothing, cars, or computers. Where are the products that generate wealth? Why do you think these things I named and much more don't exist?
Wow, that's a real serious question. And no, you can't walk into any store, the Walmarts, the Sam's Clubs, the Costco's, the Targets. You can't walk into any major department store and find products that are actually from Africa for Africans or for black people. I do remember that back in 1985, Minister Farrakhan wanted to start up a program. It was called Power. People Organized Working Together for Economic Rebirth. And at that point, they were making soap, toothpaste, lotion, deodorant. There's like 5 or 6 products that they were making, and it was going along pretty good. And then Johnson, who was producing the product, pulled out because the Jews threatened to pull all their support from their Ebony and Jet magazines, all their advertisers, and Minister Farrakhan was out on a limb by herself. But I thought then that it was enough people in the nation and enough money was given to the nation that they could have kept the supply run going and kept building off of that, but they didn't.
If God has a chosen people that he favors over others, would that make others stepchildren?
Wow. That's a... God has a chosen people. There's no doubt about that. It's biblically written. It's in the Bible. Even when he comes back, his bride is the church. We're all God's children. Some of us are spoiled. Some of us think that we're better than the other children. But in God's eyes, we're all equal. No matter how we look at it. We're looking at it straight across and God's looking down. So we should just be thankful that we're considered one of God's children. As far as being a stepchild, that's kind of rough, I mean, some of us, we have to admit it, we live the life of the devil. That is in the Bible also where it says, ye are of the seed of your father, the lust of your father you should do. He was a liar from the very beginning, the devil. So I would say that there's some children that belong to God and some of us belong to the devil.
And the questions are quite simply, now we know that when the slaves got on the ships coming from Africa to this, or when they were forced into the hulls of those ships coming to America from what became America from Africa, they didn't have Bibles. So the question becomes, how did these people then become Christians? Or more to the point, why would you accept the religion given to you by people who made you a slave? To me, that doesn't make any sense. So, I certainly have deep reservations about Christianity, at least as it is practiced by the Western world. Again, it's the perfect tool to control and exploit a population. I feel like, the problem with it is that all too often
it becomes perverted.
I'm Tina Rivers Ryan, and this is the November 2025 episode of Art Forum's Under the Cover video series. We're very thrilled to be here at the Studio Museum in Harlem and joined by their curator, Connie H. Choi, who has organized this fantastic exhibition, Tom Lloyd, which revisits the inaugural exhibition that opened the Studio Museum back in 1968. I wanted to begin by asking Connie to speak a little bit about Tom Lloyd's importance for the museum.
Yes, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. You know, Tom Lloyd was the artist, the first artist selected for the museum's studio program, which was one of the 3 founding initiatives alongside the film unit and the artist in residence program. Now, I think most people know about the significance of the artist in residence program, given that it's the one initiative that has lasted till this moment. But the studio program was originally conceived of as a space for artists working in non-traditional materials, working in an experimental manner, to be supported and held by an institution, right? So he received funds in the creation of new works, many of which you see here, and he received the opportunity to mentor young people to assist him in that, and an exhibition, which is Electronic Refractions too. So the fact that we are now opening in this beautiful new building with Tom Lloyd's work is one that has a lot of historical resonance and important institutional resonance for us. But I think too, Lloyd is important to us as an institution because he holds so many of the values that our founders conceived of as being one that grounded this institution. He was an artist working in experimental manner. He was experimenting with light at a time when a lot of artists and Black artists were not doing so. He had collaborated with an RCA engineer named Alan Sussman to do that. He was breaking the boundaries and expanding the possibilities of what Black art can and should be. He was unapologetic about what his work meant to himself as a Black artist and also what it could mean to a Black community. And so the fact that he was the artist that inaugurated our space was deliberate on the part of our founders. It was an announcement to the world of what the possibilities of Black artistic production should be acknowledged as.
It is just on a personal level so exciting for me to be in this exhibition. Just personally have a long-standing interest in the history of kinetic light sculpture. It's what I wrote my doctoral dissertation about, and I've never had the chance to see so many of these works individually. Is there a particular work out of this incredible collection of works that that really speaks to you?
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Tina, actually, because I remember emailing you, I don't know how long ago, 5-6 years ago, because you had posted about one of Lloyd's work. So I reached out to you and was like, where is that work? The work that I hold in terms of one that has such significance to me personally is a work called Nubile. It is an early work. We think it might be the earliest of the electronically programmed works. It was made in 1965 when we know that Lloyd and Alan made the first of these works. It was gifted to us by a woman named Martha Cotter, who is the widow of Alan Sussman. So she, after his passing in May 2023, she started going through his belongings and found this work. And so the fact that she gave this work to the Studio Museum in Harlem is one that I am so deeply honored by. The fact that she wanted this work to be held in our own collection, but also understood the significance of what it would mean to us and to her husband, right? Especially given that we were privileged enough to be able to have a couple conversations with Alan before he passed away, and this exhibition is only possible because of that information that he provided to us, right? He was the one who helped Lloyd make these works.
And part of what makes this exhibition so special is actually the architecture of the room. You know, you have a space that I think you guys explicitly refer to as having a kind of a chapel feeling to it. There's something that feels sacral about it. The way that the large sculptures have been hung, sort of in the position of a rose window. I mean, it's really, really special. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about the museum itself and, maybe what really excites you about it as a curator who now gets to play in this space.
Yes, I mean, I think we will be playing in this space for a few more years at least in order to understand all of the nooks and crannies. What I appreciate so much about the design of this building is that it was meant to hold art. Our former buildings were all repurposed. They were existing structures that we either rented or owned, but this is the first purpose-built building for our institution. And so the fact that visitors can wander around this building and never know what they might come across, you'll round a corner and see a work. That sense of discovery and wonder is one that I so appreciate in terms of how this building, the floor plan is laid out, but also I think how the material of the building, the path that you're led through kind of subtly by the choice of materials and textures is one that allows, I hope, visitors to have a deep sense of play, right? Not just on the part of the curatorial team with installing work, but visitors themselves have a sense of play as they kind of go through this building and discover, all these works that may or may not be around the corner.
Sounds like you guys are going to do some really wonderful things with it. And in fact, you already have, I think, with the permanent collection show that's on you and also the exhibition of the archival sort of history of the museum. I think people are going to really enjoy being here. So thank you so much, Connie, for sharing your thoughts with us today. And we look forward to seeing you guys again here soon.
Yes, please come visit.
Assemblywoman Cynthia Jenkins was a woman who decided to get into politics to help black people who were always getting the short end of the stick.
There was another time I remember I was standing in the front of the museum with him inside, and Assemblywoman Jenkins came in. And I remember my father introduced me to her, and she reached out to shake my hand. I shook her hand, and I remember my father saying, "She don't take no mess from nobody." And he emphasized the word, nobody. Let me be clear. When he said, "She don't take no mess from nobody," he said it right in front of her. He didn't say it later on or earlier that day. He said it right in front of her. And you could see her strength. You could see she was no nonsense. Unlike politicians today, these black politicians who get into it to make some money. No. Assemblywoman Cynthia Jenkins was in it to make the community better. That's a huge difference.
Department of Housing Preservation and Development, December 1st, 1986. Dear Miss Jenkins, as you know, the City of New York was granted possession by court order of the site on which the Storefront Museum is located, effective April 30th, 1986. At that time, Mr. Thomas Lloyd, director of the museum, was advised that he would have to remove his possessions from the site. We again notified him on July 25th, 1986, that he would have to remove any remaining items so that the site demolition and preparation for construction could take place. Despite many subsequent conversations with DRO staff and another letter to him on October 29th, 1986, some items belonging to the museum still remain on the premises. Con Edison has now given us a turn-off date of December 4th for utilities at the site. As soon as shut-off occurs, the demolition contractor will begin his work on the site. Any property items remaining on the site will be considered abandoned, and the City of New York can take no responsibility for their disposition. This office will keep you informed of any further developments. Thank you for your assistance. Sincerely, Wilfredo Vargas, Assistant Commissioner. Many middle-class blacks were somehow under the illusion that York College would usher in a curriculum of inclusion, but nobody promised that. At the end of the day, blacks had no say, and since they had no true power, whites in charge counted down the hour when the would be pulled and whites would again rule. And the mayor of New York, Ed Koch, was about to blow the blues to the Storefront Museum. A Christmas gift to the ghetto.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
Just like that, the Storefront Museum was knocked to the ground in favor of a gymnasium that York College decided was much more important than black culture. When the governor of New York, Hugh Carey, toured the museum back in the day, there was no indication that the museum was standing on shaky ground. Governor Carey approved of the construction of York College that began in December of 1980. Tom Lloyd's Storefront Museum was erased off the map. Storefront Museum, February 17, 1987. Dear Assemblywoman Jenkins, on behalf of the Storefront Museum, permit me to thank you for your support during the past years. The difficulties of the past year have not broken our spirit or diminished our resolve to provide our community with the type of cultural programs representative of African American history and culture at its best. We are continuing the museum programs in temporary facilities at 195-45 Jamaica Avenue in Hollis, New York, until larger and more suitable space is obtained. At this time, we are asking your support for a history book project that photographically documents our history in Queens County. Again, thank you for your past and continued interest in the Storefront Museum. Sincerely, Tom Lloyd, Executive Director. P.S. I will be on vacation in Africa between February 18th and March 8th and will call you when I return. It's obvious. Black people need separate set-aside institutions that focus strictly on African cultural restoration. That is, if white society wants blacks to behave properly and not be programmed to continue f***ing up. Black people have special educational needs, unlike any others. America's leading white psychiatrists have to have known this. In the equation of social science, they have to have known that by the year 2016, black people would be totally out of their minds.
We were greatly divided. We rejected friendship and brotherhood among ourselves. We rejected friendship and brotherhood among our own kind. Among our own kind. Among our own kind. Among our own kind.
Instead of us airing our differences in public, we have to realize we're all the same family. And when you have a family squabble, you don't get out on the sidewalk. If you do, everybody calls you uncouth, unrefined, uncivilized, savage. If you don't make it at home, you settle it at home. You get in the closet, argue it out behind closed doors. And then when you come out on the street, you pose a common front, or united front. And this is what we need to do in the community.
February 17, 1987 letter that Tom Lloyd had sent to the Honorable Cynthia Jenkins, Assemblywoman, mentioned the new location that the museum was forced into. The size of the building at 195-45 Jamaica Avenue, Hollis, Queens, was like moving from a large mansion to a cramped studio apartment in a basement. There was no room to put anything or engage in any serious functions. Who are the black heroes and sheroes today in 2016? Is it only sports figures? Actors, singers? What about the grassroots community people? The activists, social reformers, the then and now political prisoners? Did they not make a difference? You should know their stats just like you know of your favorite and famous ball player, rapper, actor, singer, or comedian. The African Poetry Theater still thrives. There's also the Black Spectrum Film and Theater, located in Roy Wilkins Park. There's CMOTEP on Rockaway Boulevard. And in Hempstead, Long Island, there's the African American Museum. But today in 2016, there's a new mindset. Now the emphasis is no longer on collective efforts. It's now all about individualism. People bragging about how much money they make and putting down others who don't have their status. It's easy to see now those black folks who just want to be on the side that's winning. Somebody took somebody's pride away.
I was the PTA president at PS40, and he was in the community, and he was getting some kind of cultural program together, and he needed people to support him, so he came to the school, to the PS40, to PTA meetings. I met him, and he told me what he was trying to do, and I said I'd be glad to help him as much as I could.
Wow. Is that how you met him?
Yeah.
Wow. And you wound up working with my father, and in what capacity did you work with him about or on, Professor Earl?
He was trying to get some motion picture camera equipment together so he could begin to make some movies. I was telling him about cameras and all the things I'd done with him when I was in the service. I knew quite a bit about them.
I know when video cameras came out, he moved on to the video cameras.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate thing with that, Dr. Earl, is that a lot of that stuff that he taped on video deteriorated.
Yeah.
You know, the tape, because I tried to put it in a different format that was more durable, but every time I tried to play back all that footage he shot at the theater, it would break up. You know, as I would try to rewind it, play it, fast forward, it would clog up the heads.
Yeah.
So a lot of that footage that he shot was useless.
Yeah. You had to know how to store that stuff because the base was volatile.
Yeah, because a lot of humidity and all that affected the tape.
Yeah.
Now, Earl, you were a very close friend to Dr. John Henry Clark.
Yeah, I knew him for years and years. One of the first persons I met that first came to home.
Why is Black history so important to Black people?
Well, all history is always important to people because it's the record of you being in existence on the planet. It tells you who you are and what you're capable of doing. And it also reminds you of all the things that you have survived. And it keeps us from becoming depressed. So you have to know who you are.
Do Black people in 2016 need cultural restoration?
More now than any other time in the past, because there's so much confusion out there now today. The advance in technology making it possible for people to do things that they couldn't even dream of a few years ago. Yeah, I remember Cynthia used to be a librarian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My father really admired her because she was strong and didn't take no mess off nobody.
Yeah.
And she was a black politician that actually tried to help her people.
Yeah, I remember.
Tell me your remembrances of her, Dr. Earl.
Well, she was everything you said she was. She was a librarian on Linden Boulevard, the public library. She did a lot especially for the kids who came there to get different types of books. She would always point out things they should be looking at. She was a very good person.
And then she got into politics from being a librarian. And she gave the system hell.
Yeah, she became assemblywoman in Inspector Jenkins. She was elected to the assembly.
Now, what about politicians today in comparison to Assemblywoman Cynthia Jenkins? What would you say about, because Earl, we have so many politicians today than we had back in the 60s and 70s, yet our condition hasn't gotten any better. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, that's because the system they're in isn't designed to make it better for you. No matter who you elect, conditions don't get any better because that's the way the system functions.
So everything is fixed?
Yeah, of course it is.
I'm sorry?
I said, of course it is.
So I would say they're just in positions that are actually powerless.
Yeah, it benefits the person that gets elected. They get a salary, they get good medical benefits for retirement. But it doesn't do anything for the people that elected them.
Wow, that's happy. It's just a good job.
It's a good job for the people who get elected.
But they possess no true power to change anything in this white establishment.
Not at all.
Wow. Amazing. Any other reflections? We're about to conclude.
Yeah.
Any other reflections and remembrances about Tom Lloyd himself that you could speak on, Brother Earl?
Man, I'll be glad you finish it because I want to see it. I knew the brother. He did everything he could to build that storefront museum. And in my mind, that was the finest cultural program west of the Mississippi. Yeah, the people who lived in a world of make-believe over in St. Albans and Haverford Park, they never came near the storefront museum. The kids came, but the adults didn't. They were scared to death of it because the people who put their hearts and souls into integration didn't have anything to do with something black trying to stand on its own. So the integration has failed to support it, and now they wish they had because they don't have anything like it today, I can tell you that. Your father was a visionary.
If this government all of a sudden decided to issue reparations to black people, and the qualifying eligibility was for you to prove that you participated in the black struggle prior to the year 2016, would you disqualify yourself, or would you try to jump in front of the line?
The Storefront Museum in Jamaica, Queens has been able to acquire a big chunk of African roots for its new gallery, as its curator Thomas Lloyd explains.
The boat came to us as a gift from the Mystic Seaport Museum.
Originally, the boat was given to this country by Kwame Nkrumah, who was then president of Ghana back in 1962. The boat is a traditional fancy fishing canoe. There are some 1,500 of these boats now in existence. Most of them are not used in a manner that they had been used for hundreds of years. They have motors attached to them now, but they are basically fishing canoes. The boat was hollowed out of a tree trunk. And it's our understanding that Dr. Nkrumah himself worked on this boat in 1962. The colors, the motto of Ghana itself, freedom and justice, the very fine, exquisite carvings on the side is, I think, relevant to the talents of the Ghanaian artists.
You've got to appreciate your culture. Know that your roots are in Africa.
Mr. Sadama, who had written the book They Came Before Columbus, keys in on African navigation, and it's very likely that this boat that we feel is a very special boat, actually the same type possibly came to the Americas before Columbus. That is via the trade winds and the currents, the wind currents.
So you're saying it's very possible that Africans discovered it before Columbus did?
Yes, very definitely, yes.
The Kentucky Derby is one of the most famous horse racing contests in the world. A brief glimpse at the history of this spectacular event calls immediate attention to the role of blacks in horse racing. Positively Black recently visited the Storefront Museum in Jamaica, Queens. On exhibit, famous black men in thoroughbred racing.
Since we do present exhibits that relate to our culture and history, we felt that it was important to fill a void concerning black jockeys.
Tom Lloyd is founder and director of the Storefront Museum.
During the first 27 runnings of the Kentucky Derby, no less than 16 jockeys contributed and won at least 27 of those first runnings. We found that in our research that there was documented history, but the people, the racing industry, knew little or nothing about what we have achieved.
But Tom, wait, do you think the racing industry didn't know about the contribution or simply chose not to acknowledge the contribution of black jockeys?
I think it was a combination of both. We've written many people in the racing industry to get information. Most of them didn't reply, and those who did have some information wasn't in a position to give us the kind of information that we were looking for.
To understand the black participation in the thoroughbred experience, we have to go all the way back to 1665 to a place called Salisbury Plain, less than 15 miles from where we stand, where racing began under the decree of Colonel Richard Nichols, the first English governor to New York.
Andy Brown is assistant curator of the Storefront Museum's Black Jockey exhibit.
And in these trials of speed, he was looking to breed a better thoroughbred, and the slaves that were brought over were trusted with the arduous duty of cleaning up behind these horses and caring for them and providing veterinary care, and they were also relegated the often dangerous job of riding these horses. And the whole experience is rather vague. There aren't any references to black jockeys who rode here at a place called Beaver Pond right here in Jamaica. But there's clear evidence at the Union Race Course, which was America's first permanent course, built in 1821, less than 5 miles from here at Woodhaven, Queens, where Charles Stewart, a slave, was entrusted by his master to bring up over 20 prize thoroughbreds with white people in his charge to campaign right here in the borough of Queens, in the borough of racing.
Tell me, Andy, about the early Kentucky Derbies, the extent to which black jockeys participated in those events.
Well, Churchill Downs was built as a competitor to the racetracks here in the north, and they needed a great race to keep all the prize thoroughbreds from being here in Queens. So the original purse was only about $1,000. But all of the black jockeys in the first Kentucky Derby, except for William Lakeland, were all black.
You mean all of the jockeys running except one were black in the first Kentucky Derby?
Yes.
And a black jockey won?
Yes, Oliver Lewis, who is the mainstay of this exhibit and its literature. He was very prominent, especially riding in the southern tracks of the fairgrounds in the south and the Churchill Downs and Latona Downs.
Other Kentucky Derby winning black jockeys include William Billy Walker. Walker won the Derby in 1877 and also received the Jockey Club purse for best behaved jockey on the track. After retiring as a rider, Walker, who was an expert on pedigree bloodlines, became a trainer. He witnessed every Kentucky Derby until his death in 1933. And the legendary Isaac Murphy, who won the Kentucky Derby 3 times, was the first man, black or white, inducted into the Racing Hall of Fame in Saratoga, New York.
Isaac Murphy was a man who people had the utmost integrity for. And when it was known that he was in a race where there was collusion, he was the only jockey of record that I've ever come across who would actually inform the stewards. And in a situation where there were immense betting pools on his famous Mount Salvatore, it was almost unheard of with him associating with that company that he would maintain his particular integrity. And he died tragically at the age of 36, which really shocked the racing world. And when his grave was found, totally held in disarray with weeds growing around, there were several turf riders who saw how prominent that he was and felt this was a disgrace, and his body was moved to Horseman's Park in Lexington, Kentucky. Isaac Lewis was another campaigner along the southern tracks, especially the fairgrounds and up at Latona Downs. Very little is known about him except for his spectacular win on Montrose in the 1887 Derby.
Very little is known about the 1892 winning jockey Alonzo Clayton. The same applies to James Soup Perkins, who won the 1895 Derby. When he became too heavy to ride, he became a clocker and later faded into obscurity.
This is Willie Sims, who actually defied his parents to become a jockey. He came up from the South and was one of the leading riders at the 3 Brooklyn racetracks that are very prominent at the Century. He rode mainly for a man named Mike Dwyer, who was one of the wealthiest trainer owners on the turf and was taken to Europe and especially in England, where he created the short stirrup riding style, which became very popular with English jockeys. Until recently, that accolade was given to Todd Smith, but now we know who it really belongs to. The exhibition that I'm currently working on is The Legend of Jimmy Winkfield, which appears to me one of the greatest travesties of thoroughbred racing history. He will be the focus of the first in the series of famous black men in thoroughbred racing because of his prominence in European racing. He was the second black jockey to win back-to-back Kentucky Derbies, but after being blacklisted and becoming the leading rider for the Tsar in Russia, he was able to earn jockey fees in excess of $100,000 a year, which afforded him a life of luxury living in the Moscow Hotel. He eventually married white Russian aristocracy and lived in Maison Lafitte and became a trainer of world renown.
There are only 3 blacks in Saratoga's Racing Hall of Fame, jockeys Isaac Murphy and Willie Sims, and trainer Ed Brown, who was inducted in 1984. Brown was probably the most prominent of several black men who trained Kentucky Derby winners. He conditioned Baden-Baden for winning jockey Billy Walker in 1877, and he also owned thoroughbred horses.
That era, for the most part, that we were concerned with was the periods between 1910 and 1930, when black jockeys seemed to go the way of the dinosaurs. They just disappeared. And we have many theories concerning that, and theories that are presented in this exhibit, why they were phased out. And I think it relates mostly to the fact that it became a big money sport. And during that period also, you have to realize that the mood of America during the 30s, the 20s, and the 1910s was one of anti-black. The Ku Klux Klan was prevalent in those days. it was difficult for them to accept the fact that a young 17-year-old black jockey was making between $17,000 and $25,000 a year.
Not much has changed, has it?
No, and that's the amazing thing. And that's what
You know, he expected 100% from you. And he was way before Judge Judy as far as getting the truth out of you. He would look you in your eye intensely. He would watch your body language. And if your answer wasn't appropriate, he would dismiss you. And he expected you to be involved in some aspect of the struggle for human rights, the struggle that African Americans were engaged in. If you weren't about that, he had no respect for you. You know, and to me, that's the way it's supposed to be. If you are an oppressed individual, you're supposed to have some type of militancy about you. A post office located at 2018-10 Merrick Boulevard was renamed to honor Jenkins so that she would never be forgotten. The bill was approved unanimously in 2014, but yet, as of March 8, 2016, there are no visible memorable indicators inside, outside, or around the post office to connect anyone to Assemblywoman Cynthia Jenkins. No plaque, no painting, no marker or photograph. The New York Times, Sunday, February 14, 1988. Queens Museum Inquiry Ends, by Joseph P. Freed. An investigation into the use of city money by a museum in Queens has ended without criminal charges, according to a spokeswoman for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which conducted the inquiry. The spokeswoman, Bridget Brennan, declined to detail the findings of the inquiry, which involved the Storefront Museum, a center for black art and culture in Jamaica for 16 years, before it closed last year for reasons unrelated to the inquiry. When the inquiry was announced last September, investigators said that it was looking into whether money the Department of Cultural Affairs gave the museum had been used for its intended purpose. The founder and director of the museum, Tom Lloyd, said then that nothing improper had been done. A lawyer for the museum, Richard Leff, said, quote, "If they are indeed closing out the criminal investigation, that's good news," unquote. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office investigated the case because the Cultural Affairs Department is in Manhattan on Columbus Circle. The prosecutors undertook the inquiry after receiving the findings of an earlier inquiry by the department's Inspector General. The museum had received almost $300,000 in city cultural money in the last decade, but it was not known how much of that was the focus of the inquiry. The museum closed early last year because its city-owned building at 162-02 Liberty Avenue was scheduled to be demolished to make way for a gymnasium for York College. Mr. Leff said Mr. Lloyd, 58 years old, a sculptor and longtime advocate for black art and culture, was still seeking a new home for the museum. Its offerings included a 30-foot-long African canoe, an annual African festival, and photographic exhibitions on blacks in the United States.
But should all of our artists, should all of our leaders come through the realm of entertainment? In other words, just because you got good rap artists out there and good people and LeBron James, good people doing good things in the entertainment industry, we do need serious people on our serious questions. So that the model may not be Tupac, but the model may be another young brother, young, charismatic, sincere, who is thinking and examining our reality and projecting our future. That we may need, and for young folks to tap into that person, rather you will have to be on a song, on a CD, in order to get their attention. Maybe we expand that thing that they can focus on something beyond that scope, but that's the only scope. Then whatever tools we have to help them navigate to see something more, then the artist has that role, and we have the right and responsibility to honor that artist, like a Paul Robeson.
Sam Cooke had a great idea. Barry Gordy had a great idea. James Brown had a good idea. Otis Redding had a good idea. But they would never let all the organizations or all the groups come together and organize as one to make black music or black entertainers a powerhouse. We have Natural Advancement Television and Radio Association, which is a black organization. But we have never done anything other than had a few concerts, had a few dinners, and a few awards was given and a few handshakes, but we never actually worked as one. They did something years ago, and I need to say this about Michael Jackson. The white people that had control over Michael Jackson determined that at a certain time in America, that Michael Jackson's video was going to come on and nothing else. On every music channel, radio, TV, MTV, and whatever they had back then. And they pulled off a move, and they could not figure out how that happened. And it was because of control. You know, every artist that is living, and they're trying to do in Smokey Robinson now, every artist that is living is worth more dead than alive.
The important thing is to remember is the intent behind the application. So quite simply, that means if you are a good preacher, a good rabbi, a good imam, a good priest, that's a good thing. Same thing with a good policeman, a good military man, a good politician. It's a good thing. But if you have a bad one in any one of those cases, well, that's fucked up. So, and that's kind of all too often where we find ourselves, you know, as a lot of times the victim, or the person being exploited by those who use these and twist these different agencies and entities to suit their own agendas. Again, you know, and I want to stress this, you know, because a lot of times when I talk, it gets kind of lost in a lot of the stuff that I say. So the important thing to remember is that religion, just like any other entity or organization or agency, can be a good thing. You know, it all comes down to the intent behind the application.
Connie, thank you so much for meeting with me today. Once again, my name is Richard Jones. I go by the Harlem Historian on social media. Before I get into my questions, is there anything you'd like to open the interview with?
No, except thank you. I mean, we're so excited and thrilled that the Studio Museum in Harlem is finally opening up again in our neighborhood and in community.
Awesome. As a lifelong Harlem resident, I really am happy too. I haven't been to the museum since I was a child, and so being able to come back as an adult and as a professional, really meaningful to
Well,
me.
yes, please do come. We're excited to have everyone join us November 15th.
Yes, November 15th. My first question for you. In a 2021 interview with Ilk Yasha, you stated that the Studio Museum was born from a commitment to equity in the arts. How does that commitment to equity factor into your curatorial practice?
Wow. I would say, my grounding is actually in arts education. That is what I did as an undergrad. I worked at a nonprofit contemporary art gallery, helping them run their teen docent program. It's what I did a master's in. And so I always think about how experiences and exhibitions feel and look to a visitor. How what we're doing is about educating, right? Curatorial practice is about educating. It's about thinking about diverse audiences, everyone from, the Harlem historian, right? The people who know our community, who know the history of the institution, to newcomers. And so this institution has always been grounded in thinking about what Black artistic practice means across generations, but also for living artists in particular, right? So what does it mean to advance equity in the arts for artists who are living in this particular moment, right? Providing them all different kinds of avenues of support, providing emerging professionals that opportunity. We have not only an artist in residence program, which is for emerging artists, but also a teen photography program called Expanding the Walls, which is about even more emerging artists, right? Even younger emerging artists. And so that, I think, is at the core of how the institution thinks about equity, but also at the core of how I am thinking across the various exhibitions that we have on view.
Absolutely. Speaking of your master's, your dissertation was in education in the mid-20th century and the photography created as a result. What attracted you to this period, and how does the political climate of that time inform your approach to education?
Yeah. I haven't thought about that dissertation in a very long time. I would say, again, coming from a background of thinking about education and coming from a background where my parents were immigrants to this country, I've always been deeply interested in what it means to have an experience that is grounded in a site specificity, right? Like, my parents instilled in me a deep respect for community, right? For building relationships in a community. They owned their own business for 36 years. They were deeply kind of rooted in the town that I grew up in. And I think that is what impacted my understanding of what art should be, right? Art that is rooted in community, art that reflects the experiences of the people who live there, art that challenges the experiences or the expectations or the assumptions of people who are within a community. And so photography was something that always attracted me because it was something that felt here and of the moment, and documentary and, a record of people and communities.
Awesome. For the second time, Tom Lloyd's work stands as a premier exhibition for the opening of the Studio Museum. What does it mean to the museum to place Tom Lloyd at the center in 2025, and what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah, we knew that Lloyd had to be part of this opening moment. He's so important to the history of this institution. He is someone who really speaks so fundamentally about who we are and what we wanted to be and who we have become. He is an artist who is working in an experimental manner, in a manner that was so radical and ahead of his time, that still feels ahead of its time, right? When you walk into this space, a lot of people have been saying that it feels like space age, it feels like you've been transported into like another realm, and that is what he was doing, right? He was creating opportunities for artwork to live beyond the bounds of what people expected Black art to be in the 1960s, right? And so to open in 2025 with that is a statement of who we have always been, right? We have always been an institution.
Excuse me, guys, in front of the camera, please.
We've always been an institution that is rooted in experimental practices, supporting the work of living artists, and to display that so beautifully in this brand new building with Lloyd's work is a celebration of our institutional history and a celebration of the possibilities of what work can and should be.
Do Black people need civil rights or a human rights museum?
Do we need another civil rights or human rights museum or a Black museum? What we really need is a horror museum. We need a museum that shows the figures of people who did us wrong. That's what's missing from these museums. We see photographs of men, policemen, sicking dogs, German Shepherd dogs on Black people, biting Black women's breasts, biting Black people. But we don't know who these people are. We don't know them by name. We should know them by name. I'm sure you can look at these photos and people can say, oh yeah, he worked at so-and-so precinct. He worked over here. He was in this racist organization. Their faces are visible, just like people at lynchings. Their faces are visible. Our children should know the names of these people. Bull Connor, King Leopold. We should know the names of these monsters. We need monster museums, or at least have them in a large segment of these human rights or civil rights, human rights museums. That's what's missing. Their identity is missing. We look at the photographs of these people, we don't know who they are. We know who was on duty that day. We know what precinct they worked at. We know what organization they were members of, whether it was the White Citizens Council, the Ku Klux Klan, or whatever. Put names on these people, identify them. If you're going to build statues, put name tags on them so our children can know who they are. That's important. Then to keep putting up these civil rights museums, and all we see is Black people getting the shit beat out of them. We don't know who did the beating. We don't know who the perpetrators are. We should know who they are. Our children should grow up being able to quote these people's names. Their names should be able to roll off their lips about who these people were. People getting clubbed down by police. People getting attacked, getting bitten up by dogs. Who's the people that sick the dogs on them? So if that's the case of getting more museums dedicated to us, then I'm for it. I'm for horror museums.
Tom Lloyd's storefront museum was knocked down and replaced by York College, a multicultural college. Multiculturalism only benefits members of their individual culture. It's not inclusive and expansive as it sounds. Black folks in particular have special needs that are completely different from others. History backs me up. There is nothing of remembrance in the location where the storefront museum once was. Not a single plaque, a street sign, or anything for the public at large to know what existed before York College went up. Not a single trace. The storefront museum was a very important institution for restoring cultural pride to African Americans. It's no wonder why crime is on the rise where Black folks reside. It's projected that in the year 2020, things will get worse. Is it by design?
of us who gathered together here this evening in this commemoration time. I think one writer says that life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. But thus the heart to dust returneth, was not spoken of the soul. And it goes on, tell me not in mournful numbers that life is but an empty dream, and the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. But a passage there says, and lies of great men. And he asks us, how do we measure greatness? How big a house a man lives in, how many Mercedes he drives, how many Jags, how many Porsches. But I think one writer made it so plain when he says, let me live in a house by the side of the road. Some of you may not be here tomorrow to hear what I have to say, some the same part of it tonight. Tom touched the lives of many people, just as though the word hadn't got out. Of course, I believe it did, that there'd be no place large enough to hold the people that he touched. And it says, let me live in a house by the side of the road and be a friend to men. And Tom was just that. And all the things that he said. But he says, and departing, leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. I was sharing on yesterday that we go back some 20-some years. We had to be here in around 1973 when a young kid named Clifford Glover, his life was snatched out by a reckless police officer, Shea. And it seems as though that Jamaica was going up in flame. And we have many people that stand by the sideline and say, why not? But very few get involved. Tom was there in the forefront. I remember that New York Boulevard was hell, excuse the expression, but it's in the Bible. It says there was a rich man, the poor man, and the rich man dined sumptuously. He had filet mignon and prime ribs, but the poor man didn't have anything. He begged for the crumbs that fell from the table.
Riding up here from New Jersey on Belt Parkway, I remember many trips on the Belt Parkway to meet Tom at the studio to work on some of the sculptures he designed, and I helped do the electronic ones. And I was trying to remember how long it has been since I've been Tom. I think it was somewhere in the early 60s. So that's 30 years, which was an on and off friendship, because he wasn't always working in sculpture and I wasn't always doing the electric stuff for him. But I do remember the one thing. Recently we got together again because Tom had a bug about the new kinds of electric lights. These produce lots of beautiful color, and he said, now I can do what I always wanted to do. I won't have to fool around with light bulbs, I can do these things. And we started planning the new generation of Tom Lloyd sculptures. We were at the Apollo because Tom wanted to produce for the lobby of the Apollo Theater a historic art sculpture, which would combine the art, and if you've seen Tom's work, motion of light and color with words, and in that respect would honor the performers from the history of the Apollo Theater, who are just so many I wouldn't even bother to start. But what I wanted to say is Tom had this vigor, and even when he knew he was not very well, it didn't stop him from visiting places where we could find out the high technology and get things ready. He had plans. We would send back and forth drawings and stuff, which only stopped early this year. So I feel honored to have been Tom's friend, co-worker, and I feel humble in the presence of all his friends and relatives to be able to say just a few words in his memory.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Anybody else like to say anything, they're welcome to.
Friends and family, not much on words. I've known Tom a long time. Some of you all know me, know that. I worked with Tom a long time. Some of y'all know me, know that too. Those of y'all who know Tom, that aren't family, know that there are not too many words that can describe him, because Tom was like a person who got the job done by any means necessary.
Hey, Charles.
Whether it was a protest, whether setting up buses to go to a boycott, whether putting on a 2-day festival in the summertime when we closed off New York Boulevard and Liberty Avenue. We would be working 18 hours a day to get it done. Whether it's contacting performers from various organizations in the neighborhood or throughout the community to do a little something for the community, whether it's taking an active role in the school, or when he got mad. Some of us know how that can be, but, you know, we're all human. Everybody knows a part of Tom that's unique. Some of y'all didn't know he tells jokes. I didn't know one day until I caught him half asleep, you know, from working too hard. He was telling a joke, or at least trying to. So he wouldn't get mad, I laughed. But, you know, we all had to do what we had to do to get along with Tom and to work with him. Sometimes it was hard, sometimes it wasn't hard. Okay. I know it really broke his heart when the museum closed, because the museum was like a part of him. And I guess you could say that was like one of his turning points. When he told me he was going to retire, I didn't believe it. I figured he would own stock in AT&T or New York Tel and be running the telephone lines until he gets relocated or resituated. But what can I say? Only thing I can say is that part of Tom that you knew, that should be the part of Tom that you should remember. And with all of us here tonight, maybe we'll find out some different parts of Tom that we didn't know exist. That's basically.
My name is John Watusi Branch, and first of all, my condolences to the family. Looking at the obituary here, that Tom has done a lot in his life. He's made a lot of contributions to the community and to African American people. The obituary says that one of his greatest achievements was the founding of the Storefront Museum. And that's where our relationship began, at the Storefront Museum. Being involved in culture myself and realizing how important that is to raising a people up. And I found Tom in this work, and we did a lot of things together there at the Storefront Museum. He mentions the Queens Inner City Arts Council, and that was an organization of cultural groups in Queens. And we did a lot. Tom was a fighter, a real fighter. And, you know, I welcomed that and many others. And so he took leadership in many things in the community, with the Clifford Glover killing and organizing the community at the museum there. And many things that he took the leadership of, and informing the Queens Inner City Arts Council, bringing the groups together to address the insufficient funding from the state, the city, and invading the offices of Donald Mattis and Governor Carey, and being very bold fighter. And so that's my memory of Tom as being that kind of fighter, and I was happy to be involved in that fight. And he was one that I personally learned a lot from in terms of organizing a cultural center. We had many seminars in how to do things, set up board of directors and do various things, set up your organization where it becomes strong, administratively. And so he was one for that, and organized a lot of workshops where we helped to get the cultural groups to be more administratively strong. They was already creatively good, so Tom did a lot. And so I am very happy to have known him and shared in his contribution to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Your mother looking good?
Going in a limbo.
Yeah, looks good.
Where's he going? No, you're not.
You got them pipes out.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, okay. In case you're waiting for
Right,
Receiver, yeah. See, but ain't nothing, just like you was up there a long time ago. Nothing like separate amps.
John Watusi Branch made his transition at the age of 70 on December 28, 2013. The African Poetry Theater started in 1976 and found a home in 1977 on Merrick Boulevard, and in 1979 moved to its current location at 176-03 Jamaica Avenue. Branch's theater offered cultural and educational tours to West Africa and developed a summer youth program. Branch was a highly respected and well-known figure in the Pan-African movement that sought to establish independence of African nations and unifying black people all across the world.
Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up and sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. You know, sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, no, yes, Lord. Still, nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. You get there before I do. Oh yes, Lord. Don't forget to tell all my friends I'm coming to. Oh, oh yes, Lord. Still, nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble that I've seen. Glory, hallelujah.
Fill you with the Holy Ghost, then you can sing that I'm free at last. Oh, I'm free at last. I'm so glad about it. I'm free at last. You know he sings. Oh, yes he did. Oh, you know I'm free at last. I'm so glad. I've been fighting
life's got me, that's for sure. No place to waste my time in, no place to stay in shape from all the trouble I'm in. No escape, no place when night approaches to lay my weary head. No place where hungry roaches don't share my bread and my bed. No place to be somebody, no corner to call my own. No spot does life allot me that's mine alone. My suits are worn, my shoes are shoddy, because I got no place to be somebody. Hey, no place to be somebody, no place for seeking peace, no place where they ain't shot me through the grease. No place for feeling free in, no ways to stand a chance. I'm much too busy fleeing circumstance. No place for me to banish the boredom from my day, nor where hard times will vanish without a trace. Ain't no such place, no place to be somebody, no place where misery ain't got black belt karate to whip on me. That's why my soul's so bruised and knotty, because I got no place to be somebody. Got no place to be, yeah, somebody. No place to be somebody. No place to be.
He lit a fire in 1965 that still burns at a museum in Harlem, New York, in an ongoing war that still exists in the year 2025.
So it's why I would say the Africans and the American Negroes have turned out to be an extraordinarily gifted people. The great tragedy is that by not making us full-class citizens as yet in America, they may be losing, I don't know how much yet.
I brought to his attention how desperate they could get.
Hear from concerned citizens who understand what the role of oppressed artists should be.
An artist's job should be to speak truth to power, free to illuminate and explain things that we may not see. But like somebody said, the purpose of an artist or philosophy is not to accept the world, but to change it. And the artist can be a tool to open our eyes to something that we can't see.
They should have a great role. I think that they should unify. I could never figure out how come the rappers made everything East Coast, West Coast. Disunity. As long as there's disunity, as long as someone has their hand out to be able to put a bridge or a wall between this side and that side, the east, the west, the north, the south, the uptown, the downtown, the in-town, the round-town. As long as there's someone that has the ability to put that hand between anyone that's doing the same thing, They have the power to control how much money is being made. Those people that are making money, the rappers, the actors, the movie stars, the dancers, the basketball players, the football players, all those folks that are making money are just making pennies on the dollar to the dollars that the people that are in control that are making.
Tom Lloyd, a fighter who put on a clinic on what oppressed artists need to do. He's now back in action at the Studio Museum in Harlem, New York. To see more on Tom Lloyd, go to YouTube and look for Studio Museum and see the film by Omar Shabazz, Tom Lloyd, Fighting Artist.